Hello everyone, this is Shin Sang-hyup on In Focus. On February 23rd, the Global Korea 2012 conference was held to discuss new developed models of capitalism for the post-global economic crisis era. Gathered under the slogan Shared Growth toward a new model of capitalism after the crisis, participants from various fields took part in in-depth discussions to not only define shared growth, but also to explore strategies and policies to make effective implementation. And today's In Focus, we have two guests who took participate in the conference earlier this week. Sitting on my right is Mr. Nicholas Hajar, who is CEO of CDI. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
And sitting on my the left, Mr. Stuart Yasgur, Managing Director of Ashoka. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Well, let's start today's discussion. Mr. Yasgur and Mr. Hajar, is this your first visit to Korea?
This is my second visit to Korea. Last time I was here, I was actually here for the G20.
I see. So certainly you have the impression of Korea, right?
I have a very positive impression of Korea. I think what's interesting is in this visit, on my previous visit and in this visit, Korea really seems to be taking some leadership issues and posing interesting questions about how we should run our states, how we should create our economies, and what our policies should be.
I see. How about Mr. Hajar?
That's my second time as well. And before coming here, I didn't know a lot about Korea. Actually, I just knew something about one of your very famous kings, Sejong, and I think that what he did, creating the alphabet and so on, for being more connected with the people, he's like a kind of pioneer of shared growth.
Well, certainly I hope you have a really good time during your stay in Korea. Well, I want to discuss about the newer terminology, the shared growth, which was developed by, developed by the Korean government in order to emphasize the harmony between markets and government and balance between growth and welfare and the construction of social economy. I think it's better for us to discuss social economy first, to discuss the shared growth more efficiently. Mr. Hajar, do you have any idea about the social economy? What is it?
I think that there are lots of interpretation of social economy. If you live in the US, in Europe, or in Asia, you have a very different way of thinking about social economy. For me, social economy is an economy where everybody is an economy that gives the same chances to everybody, that refuse to have a growth with inequalities, and we saw in the past decades that, and especially in Europe and in the US as well, we saw that the economy grew, but the inequalities were increasing a lot. And if we want to have a sustainable growth, a long-term growth, I think we really need to fight against these kinds of inequalities, and social economy is the measures and the policies to fight against all kinds of exclusion and poverty.
I see. Do you want to add something more?
I think in terms of a definition of social economy, I think that's a term that may have more currency here in Korea than it does, for example, in other places. I think more importantly, what we've been wrestling with over the last few days and in the longer piece is how do we think about the economy?
I see.
And in particular, can we think about the economy in a way that is actually for the benefit of everyone who participates and who should be participating? So whether it's the isolation or alienation of the young people who have difficulty actually accessing the job market, or the more disenfranchised in our societies, those living with disabilities, the elderly, etc. How do we create an economy that actually works for the benefit of all?
I see.
I think it's if I may add something, it's exactly shared growth, and the concept of social economy is the symbol of the yin and yang. It's your Korean symbol. It's having obviously growth, but also more addressing these big social issues, finding solution for the big social issues you're facing, and to find a harmony inside the society.
Well, as Mr. Hajar explained very briefly about shared growth, actually, it has included many meanings in it. So maybe you have something to add about the shared growth.
I think my understanding is that in Korea we're still wrestling with what shared growth means and what it could look like. I think the benefit of the conversations that we've had to date really are questions of what's working in other places, what lessons can be learned, how do we actually start to bring those lessons here, adapt them for the local context in ways that work and make sense for the good of everyone in Korea.
I see. Well, to discuss further about the today's topic, we have to discuss the another terminology, that is the fair society. What is it?
Fair society actually is the fact that we have to understand that every actor of the society has a key role to play in social and in global inclusion of the society, of the fair society. So that means that if you take the government obviously and the public sector has a strong role to play in building a fair and a more shared growth society, but also the civil society that are in contact, there are people that are in contact with the social needs, and also the corporation, the small, the medium one, and the big corporation. And all together have to work together to build this shared growth and to build a fairer society.
I see. Do you agree with this opinion?
I largely do agree. I mean, I think creating a fair and just society, I think, is a fundamental human conception. I think this is something that we all aspire to, and I thought yesterday one of the very interesting presentations that came up yesterday was the extent to which Koreans worry about whether or not their society is actually fair. Is everybody here getting a fair shake to participate?
Well, then I would like to ask this question to Mr. Hajar. Actually, there has been many critics about the capitalism. According to the critics, they said that in the current form of capitalism is not efficient enough to, in creating a fair society. What is your opinion about these critics?
That's actually a very good question, and actually, I think that we're not facing a problem of capitalism, but there are various forms of capitalism actually, and the capitalism we knew for the past 20 years was more a financial capitalism, meaning that in our global society, shareholders of big companies especially, and shareholders globally, had a two important role in the economy. That means that they were expecting return on equity between 15 and 25%, which is really, really high. So they were pushing for that. So the investment rate has never been as low in Europe and in the US as it was during the past decades. And in the meantime, there were pressure on wages. So we had unemployment plus low investment rates. So that creates that for building a bigger growth, and especially in Europe and in the US, we had to create financial bubbles, and we have to play on and leverage on household debt. And so that creates the main problem. And because we are in a globalized world, there has been a systemic effect on that. And so we face the crisis that we know. So it's not really a problem of capitalism. It's more a problem of having a better way to do capitalism and not to focus only on the financial matters.
I see. You mentioned very, very important things, I think. How about your opinion? Do you...
Well, I agree with almost everything you said, except for the first word, which is,
what is it?
I don't think it's a good question. I think it's not the right question for us to be asking. I don't think it's a question of capitalism versus not capitalism, the state versus not the state. The state has a very important role to play. The markets have a crucial role to play. The citizen sector has a very important role to play. I think we need to think differently about the situation we're in.
I see.
We're in a situation in which the rate of change will continue to increase. We need to actually generate the ability to create new solutions. We have an incredible resource to do that.
Well, Mr. Hajar, I want to discuss today's topic from the different perspectives. Well, the social enterprises, actually to build and expand the social economy. Many people know that the important role and contribution of the social enterprises. So I want to discuss about what the social enterprise is, and then what kind of role they should play.
Okay. Social enterprises are actually enterprises that have tried to tackle a big social issue, whether it's a health issue, an employment issue, education issue, and so on, with an economic model. That means that they are private, that they are enterprises, but they're not just only focusing on profit, they're also focusing on trying to find a solution to a social issue. And that means that we don't want to substitute to the government. That's not at all. No. We don't want to take, we're not playing exactly, we're not doing the same thing that the big corporation and then small and medium enterprises. We're in the middle. We're taking the best part from the public sector, focusing on the general interest, and the best part of the private sector in their efficiency and then in the entrepreneurship. And putting both together makes social enterprise.
I see. Well, Mr. Yasgur, actually another terminology which is not familiar to us is the social entrepreneurs, right? Well, as far as I know, social entrepreneur should play also a very important role in expanding the social economy. What is it?
That's a good question, and it's easy to confuse the two. As I think Nicholas gave a wonderful description of social enterprise, and social entrepreneurs are slightly distinct. Social entrepreneurs are individuals who innovate for the good of everyone.
Well, individual and innovate the what? Innovate.
So what they do is they actually look at the basic systems of our society
I see.
to change the patterns. So, for example, just to give you easy examples, rather than necessarily building another school or another hospital, social entrepreneurs may come up with a new way of delivering education or a new way of delivering healthcare. We have an easy saying that can help you remember what we mean by social entrepreneurs. There's this saying that, if somebody's hungry, it can be a good thing to give them a fish. It can be an even better thing to teach them how to fish. So a social entrepreneur won't rest until he or she has revolutionized the fishing industry.
Certainly, yes, it's not easy, but it's certainly different from each other, right, in some sense?
Well, they're related. Many social entrepreneurs are effective because they actually generate social enterprises.
I see.
So there's an intimate connection between the two.
I see. Well, then, Mr. Yasgur, what is your work? Actually, as far as I introduced you already, you are the head of the Ashoka's Social Investment Entrepreneurs Initiative.
Yes.
What is your work?
Sure.
And what kind of the outcome you have had so far?
Sure. So Ashoka has been around for 30 years.
30 years?
Yes, we've been around for over 30 years now, and we're in 70 countries around the world.
70? 70
70 countries around the world. And we are, the first thing that we do, and that we're probably best known for, is that we seek to identify these leading social entrepreneurs in local contexts. So we're looking for that one person out of 10 million, quite literally, who has the ability to change the world. They've kind of recognized a very important problem. They've given themselves the permission to solve that problem. They're dogged in their pursuit of actually bringing about change, and they're creative in how they go about bringing that change about. So for 30 years, we've actually searched for these leading social entrepreneurs. We'll look at tens of thousands of them in a year.
Tens of thousands a year?
Yes.
Wow.
We'll elect 1 to 200 to become Ashoka Fellows. And they'll join in the largest global community of leading social entrepreneurs around the world. And they can be in any subject matter. It can be environment, healthcare, jobs, employment, dealing with displaced populations. There's really any subject matter, as long as it's the character and quality of the individual with a pattern-changing new idea.
I see. So certainly you have had many difficulties in implementing your idea. What is the most difficult, serious difficulties we have had so far?
Well, I'll tell you what. Our biggest challenge is very easy to say. Our biggest challenge is changing the framework. Too often, people want to think of putting us in one box or another. It's social entrepreneurs versus something else versus something else. The biggest, most profound leap is to get everyone to recognize we each have the potential to change the world.
I see. That's very
right?
important.
And we have to actually engender that potential in one another. So Ashoka today is seeking to create a world in which everyone can be a change maker, in which the society gives them the confidence, the skills, and the enabling environment to bring about change and address problems as they emerge.
I see. Mr. Hazard, actually, you are the president of CDI. And how did you create the social enterprise?
CDI actually is the subsidiary of a big, larger social business group that is called Groupe SOS. Groupe SOS is the French and I think European leading social enterprise because it's a very big corporation for the social business. We have 7,000 employees.
7,000?
7,000 employees. We have more than 550 million US dollar turnover a year.
Wow.
Through 300 different types of organization in France, but also abroad in 28 countries. And what we actually do is we have 4 main departments. The first one is the health department. We are we're running hospitals for people in difficulties. We're caring about elderly people and so on. We have a housing department for homeless people. We have an education department where we care about young children, children in difficulties, youth offenders, and an unemployment department where we hire people that are considered as unemployable. So with this big corporation, we have an impact on over 1 million people in France, where we find social solutions and we try to include them in this fairer society. And CDI is the investment and consulting company that helps other social entrepreneurs that would like to develop their impact and their social impact in France but also in the world, and that invest and consult and makes consulting services for this social enterprise throughout the world.
I see. Well, by the way, CDI stands for what?
CDI is a French name which means Comptoir de l'Innovation, which is exactly. That is the counter of innovation. That's the place where people meet to innovate.
Well, Mr. Yasgur, actually another player which should contribute to the support the construction of social economy is government. Do you think what is the role the government should play?
That's a big question. I think government has a crucial role to play. In part, what they have to do is actually create an enabling environment to help unleash the potential of the people who live within Korea. I think some of the ideas that came up yesterday, I'll give you just 2 specific ones. One is that we've learned from our global community of leading social entrepreneurs that we have to think differently about how we prepare young people to contribute in the world of tomorrow. It's no longer enough to simply teach them a body of knowledge and some specific set of academic skills. We have to teach them a sophisticated set of social skills that enable them to become change makers.
I see. Well, another player, which should play a pivotal role in the construction of social economy is the people and the private sector. What are their role, actually?
Actually, it's very interesting. I think that all these people, the public sector, the civil society, the people, but also the corporation, have all a key role to play in the construction of this fair society. Obviously, I think that a strong welfare system will help more the society to become fairer, to fight against inequalities and to fight against poverty, that's sure. So the government has a strong role to play. I think that civil society is also very important because they're in the contact with the people and with the social needs, and the social needs are evolving a lot, so it's very important to have these people in the game. And on the other part, you have big corporation, and I think they have a crucial role because they're the one that create the growth. Actually, when we speak about shared growth, we don't have to forget that the big corporations are the main creator of this growth. So I think they have 2 key roles to play, these corporations. First of all, they have to develop their corporate social responsibility policies.
CSR. Yes.
CSR, exactly, on one hand. And on the other hand, all these people have to, including the big corporation, to create new enterprises that will be able to fight against poverty and exclusion, and these enterprises are the social enterprises. And the social enterprises is really at the intersection between the public sector, the civil society, and the corporation.
Well, time is very limited, so I'd like to give you, both of you, this question. Actually, to expand social economy and create a fair society, what do you think the Korea needs the most? And if it's possible, please tell me about the Korea after 1 year. Mr. Ashoka?
So I think it's two things would be incredibly helpful to create a world in a Korea society in which everyone can become a change maker. One is help rethink the way we prepare young people to contribute to society. And two is actually to create the enabling financial ecosystem to make this a reality. If this is a real priority, in part it will require dedicating the crucial philanthropic and investment funds necessary to bring about change in Korea.
I see. How about you?
I think, yeah, it's the same. I think Korea has the big chance, actually, that they can learn from the experience from other countries that actually tried a lot of public policies, but also that developed this social economy, this social business sector. So why reinvent the wheel when we have already solutions that exist in the US, in Europe, and everywhere, and to adapt this solution to a more local context? I think that's absolutely crucial. And I just wanted to focus on one point, which for me is really important. It's about the young people, as Stuart said. Young people is a key issue, I think and especially in Korea. I think that the unemployment rate in Korea for the young people are around 20%, and I think that should be one of the priority of the government, is to find solution for them, because making them study a lot for not finding a job at the end, it's really frustrating for this generation. And I think that these people are those who will create the future growth, so we really have to take care of them.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Nicholas Hajar, CEO of CDI,
Thank you.
and Mr. Stuart Yasgur, Managing Director of Ashoka.
Thank you.
Well, today we discussed the fair society and development of social economy in Korea. Well, this is all for today, and I'm Shin Sang-hyup for In Focus, and see you next time.